I am a half glass empty kind of guy, but it makes me work harder. As I say, the optimists, I think, are too easily disappointed, which makes them miserable afterwards. So I think we can all get a little ray of sunshine when something that we don't think is going to work actually turns out. I grew up in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, which is just on the New York border. I was actually born in the eastern part, just north of Boston, but my father worked with General Electric and got around the country quite a bit. But at age 6, I got to live in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, grew up there. My mom raised my brother and sister and I. I'm the oldest of the 3, but as soon as we got into school, she went back to work as a legal secretary and worked for, I'd say, 20 years probably as up to an office manager in a rather large law firm in Pittsfield. I don't know if I knew that there was a world outside of Pittsfield as a young person. Outside of my neighborhood, I didn't know much about what was going on or anything else. Couldn't have asked for a better experience from that, and I was blessed with that. Although I use the term blessed, I'm not a very religious person. I was fortunate to have the upbringing that I did have, and I was fortunate enough to go to a place called Lennox School for Boys for my junior and senior years. Probably one of the best things that happened to me was on probably 7th or 8th grade. I got to be a paper boy for the Berkshire Eagle and got to deliver the paper around the neighborhoods. And after a while, I got complaints because I would actually sit down at the place where I picked up the papers and read the paper before I delivered it to everybody else. And my tips were not the best. 10th grade, I was very much pro-America. My parents were, I would say, right of center and very patriotic and very supportive of the administration. We went down and I toured West Point as a potential for going to college. Junior year, I went to this prep school, and it was an entirely different environment and a very liberal environment. And it was also a time that I was realizing that West Point also meant being on the front lines in Vietnam, which may have contributed to my awakening. But I had a social studies history teacher, Oliver de Montesquieu Putnam, that really kind of had the biggest influence on me and really caused me to ask a lot of questions I had not been asking, and I think contributed to my evolution and revolution to being anti-war and really looking at my government differently. The most difficult time of my relationship, particularly with my father, was at that time. I went to Bates College, a small liberal arts school in Maine. I did become a social science major, and U.S. government was basically the major that I had. And I really had, it continued my evolution that I think began at prep school to being interested in serving. And, you know, that was the call of our generation as well, was that we have an obligation and an opportunity to serve. Doing an internship for a regional planning commission in southeastern New Hampshire, dealing with developing a regional ambulance service. And it opened my eyes to the opportunities for me, but also the benefits of local government and the direct kinds of services and the very quantifiable kinds of services that that government could provide, particularly at the local level. We wanted to get back to a more rural setting. We were part of the Back to the Land movement in the 70s, and I decided to take the the position in Montpelier with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns in 1978. When you go to a town meeting in Vermont, it's amazing. We've got 10 to 20% of the people that actually show up and actually participate in town meeting, which is unfortunate. But those that do, they know where every penny of their taxes went to, and they care about their roads being plowed. They care about their water being clean. They care about the lights being able to turn on, that there's police and fire. I mean, these are very, very much measurable, very visible government services. I do believe in small government, and not only in the scale, but also in the breadth. There isn't a federal government. There is a national government, a state government, and a local government, and we are a federalist government. We have division of powers among our three layers of government. And the national government and the states and the local governments all have their responsibilities to do. We have such a love-hate relationship with particularly our national government that we don't want it until we absolutely necessarily have to have it. And different people come to that point in their thinking at different times. Keep muddling along, and then when we have a crisis such as COVID, we're going to figure out a way to do it. We're going to, or the Great Depression, or World War II. People have a low esteem for their government until they need it, and despite that, people respond. What's important is that throughout our history, and as recently as last year, we have people at all levels of government, including the national level of government, who respond when there is a crisis. Maybe it's not so bad that we don't really think very highly of our government. And, I don't think that's an unhealthy thing. I think that America was born in reaction to a totalitarian government that denied people the right of religion, to deny them the right of free speech. And they created this country. And I don't think that Americans have it in their bones to want to have a highly effective, particularly national government there, because I don't know, something happened to us in our genes as we were on the boats coming here from all of the different places that we've come here, where we are reluctant to trust government. But that hasn't stopped us from solving almost every problem that we've had to face during our long history. Here in Vermont, where, as I mentioned, 5,000 of the people that are serving you and me, at the local level are volunteers. Whether you're on the planning commission or the select board or whatever, you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it because for a lot of reasons, but one of those is because if somebody needs to do the job, you have a part to play. You have a responsibility. Government isn't them, government is us. And particularly that's true in local government here. We all have an obligation to stand up and to serve and to be part of the solution. No matter how we feel about government, no matter how we feel about some of the other people we're serving, regardless of us not having the best government and the highest esteemed government, it's where people want to come and people want to be. And it's, as I say, it's not because of the quality of our government. When I was the representative of local government, we were always fighting with the state government and with the federal government over two things. One is mandates, where the federal government and the state government want to take credit for things happening, but don't want to pay for them. So they say, okay, local government, you do this, and you raise the taxes to do it. So we had a big fight all the time over mandates. There's also, on the other shoe is something called preemption. And you're seeing a lot of this in what's happening in Texas and what's happening in Florida over the COVIDs, or on racial justice issues, where you're seeing local cities and towns adopting stricter COVID compliance things and taking steps to address the racial equity issues and justice issues. And the state's saying, no, you can't do that. And so they're preempting the ability of local governments to. So again, my relationship with state government and federal government has been as much as an adversary as for an advocate. So we've got the process that allows us to provide these products, whether they be healthcare, good roads, clean water, dealing with the climate situation. Those products, most people focus on the products and not at the process and the structure that is necessary for us to be able to address those issues. And I think that strengthening the process and the architecture, I think, would be where I'd focus, which is not going to get me elected to any position of any authority, because people are always looking for the outcome. They're always looking for what's in it for me. And, oh, by the way, don't tax me to do it. It's a hard time to be a parent with the world appearing to be in such tough shape, and our grandchildren as well. But I do really encourage them that, things will work out. Things have worked out. You have an obligation to make things work out. You have an opportunity to be able, particularly you, my daughters are well-schooled and in fortunate places. They have an obligation to make sure that they are contributors and that they are really part of the solution and not as much of a part of the problem. I think we're all part of the solution, and if we are, we're part of somebody else's problem. But I think that they have an obligation to do that, and I think they've certainly lived up to my expectations on them. I want my grandsons to have the same opportunities that I've had. And that includes things. I mean, they're little white boys, so they're in a lot better position that a lot of other people, certainly in our country as well as in the world, will have to face. But that doesn't save them from climate change. That doesn't save them from social unrest. But I want them to have the same opportunities that I was availed of, and really that's as much as I want. And I think if everyone could wish the same for their grandchildren, that we'd all be in a better place.